Welcome to Adventure Freaks, a podcast on living abroad on a budget. Hi, I'm Rami Assorti with Adventure Freaks, and I just wanted to thank you for tuning in and supporting our channel. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button, that red button below. It's the best way to support our channel. And thanks again for tuning in. All right, so today, welcome to Adventure Freaks podcast, and today we are in the beautiful city of Paris with my new friend Anne Déla Victoria. And Anne, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Anne is really an awesome young lady. She's got a lot of stuff going on. She's the founder and CEO of Easy Start, correct?
Yes, that's
right.
And
she's going to go into detail. And she's originally from Boston, Massachusetts. She's from the amazing city. I love Boston. It's beautiful there. But she found France and lives now in Paris. And she's going to share her insights and talk about if there is anything, affordable over there, and where are the really great pockets to live in. So let's pull up a map. And just to show the viewers where France is and Paris is, so let's see. So let's pull this up. All right, let me scroll out before I share this. All right, so let me get the shared screen on here. Boom. All right, so there we are, man. So it's like right across the pond from the US, and France is just north of Spain. And it's in that hub, man. I've always loved that area because it's around so many amazing places.
It's very centralized, that's for sure.
It's perfect. It's a perfect location. You got Italy, you got Spain, you got Portugal, you're just Switzerland, London is right there. It's like, it's a perfect location.
It really is. Really, you couldn't ask for anything better.
Yeah.
It's very easy, especially the train system in France in general is like top notch. So you can go, to a new country in like few hours, and from Paris to Strasbourg, for example, is only 2 hours by train. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not expensive at all. So
yeah, and I hear flights are quite reasonable now too.
Yep. So, very cheap.
Yeah.
There's different flights, for example, like if you take Ryanair, it's one of the budget airlines. You can go anywhere for like 15 euro.
Really?
I suggest that you don't bring a big luggage because they will charge you for that. But if you have a backpack and just want to do, go see a new country in Europe,
Ryanair.
You have Vueling as well. There's a lot of like cheap airlines, affordable airlines, I'd say.
Yeah.
Affordable airlines that you can, use to travel throughout Europe for really like nothing.
Yeah.
You can buy lunch for a ticket.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Anne, let's start off by going into a little bit about who you are. Introduce yourself. And I mean, you're very dynamic. Obviously, you got a lot going on. I think it's impressive that you've been living in Paris for 8 years. You started your own business that helps people, which is pretty cool. And so tell us a little bit about your journey and how you found Paris and what inspired you to start this business.
Well, I was, studying in Boston, and international business. I had some French friends, international friends in general. I had, friends from Italy, friends from France, Spain, etc. And I always had like this, European mindset, I would say. And one point when I graduated, my friends were like, "Oh, why don't we just go to Europe and kind of, see how you feel there, at least for 6 months, learn the language, etc." And I was like, okay, why not? And 6 months to 8 years later, I'm still there. So, I mean, I've made my way, and I have to say, even though it's been a very mind opening journey that I've been through, I learned a lot, and it's kind of made me grow as a person, because if you move abroad, then you have so many things to learn. One, not just the language, but just getting, you know, to know about the administration and just the culture in general. And I don't know, it's great. So here I am in France, and I don't plan on leaving.
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your Easy Easy Start. You're the CEO of Easy Start, and what inspired you to start that? Because it's more along the lines of understanding administration and all of the rules and that come with moving to a different country, right?
Right. So, like I said, I mean, even though I moved to Paris, it was very difficult for me, I would say, in terms of learning the administration, how to navigate through it. A lot of people are very confused. I mean, if you go onto a Facebook group like expats in Paris, for example, there's so many questions being like, I don't know what to do in terms of the prefecture, which is, the visa process, how to
Mhm.
renew anything. And I kind of had to go through that process and kind of somehow learn the hard way in some way as well. So I kind of want to give back to my expat community, and just help people kind of settle in easily and stress free.
Mhm. So do you have like a location that people can come in, like a brick and mortar place, or is this all online where you consult and meet with people virtually?
Yeah, so what we do at Easy Start, essentially, we are remote. We have people working all throughout in France. So what we do is actually we consult, because a lot of our clients are international. So what we do, through video, like what we're doing right now, and then if during the time where they're finding housing, sometimes meet up with them to do the visits for them.
Hmm.
But no, we don't have a brick and mortar place. It's all remote. We live in a digital age, so I
Yeah.
think it's quite easy to be working that way.
Okay. And how many people do you have working for you?
So I have five, I would say.
Okay.
I have like two relocation agents, business developer, and then a commercial director, so sales
Wow.
director.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And so, and everybody can find Easy Start. What's the website?
It's www.easystart.me.
Easy Start, Easy EASYSTART
Mm-hmm.
SE
.me.
.me,
Yeah.
easystart.me. Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll post that above this too, and at the end of the podcast for people to find it. All right, great. So let's get into the visa process. So most people are always wondering about, how do I live in Paris or France, and what is the visa process? What are the costs?
Well, it depends on what you're doing in France. So, of course, if you're a student, you need a student visa. There's a process to go through that. I went through the student visa to go to France. That's what I started out with, because I wanted to learn language. I went to La Sorbonne, which is one actually the oldest universities in Europe, in fact. But they give you a certificate, for example. You kind of need to also provide proof of financial means to stay in France as a student. So if that's the case, then your parents, for example, would need to kind of sign a letter saying, yes, I will help, so and so financially. Kind of give some bank statements as well, just to kind of prove that you do have the means. Student visa is actually quite easy to get,
Mhm.
uh, as long as the school also provides you a good certificate, then essentially you should have it. Um, and then if you're going for work related reasons, and then there's different types of visas for that. So there's this French tech visa, or what they call it a talent visa, where you are given this visa to start a business in tech, because France is a hub for technology,
Yeah.
especially in Paris. There's a huge incubator in Paris called Station F, which
Hmm.
I did work at one point. And honestly, it's just like a plethora of different startups and tech people, and there's a lot of just entrepreneurs in Paris in general. So that's one of the visas that you can get. You do need to have a business plan set up for this. Another one is the entrepreneur and liberal, professional liberal visa.
Oh.
This is setting up just your company in general. So it's not specific to technology, but in terms of creating your business,
Hmm.
this would be something that you could do. So it's, you have 1 year to prove to the government, for example, that your business is, you know, essential to the economy, I would say, and that it's going well. You're supporting yourself, you're paying your taxes, you're paying your, social security charges, etc. And then the other one is the salarié visa. So salarié is when you're sponsored by a French company or, an office in France, and they help you get a salarié visa just to work in general. So you don't need to, you're not building a company or anything like that.
Yeah.
You're not doing technology, you're not a student. So there is that visa. And then there's also the au pair visa, which is
Okay.
sponsored by your host company or host family, sorry.
Okay. Do they offer a visa for people that are considering retiring somewhere in France?
Sorry, I forgot to mention that there are people who are retiring. So there's a retirement visa as well.
There is. Okay.
And each visa has their own requirements and documents that you need to provide to the
Sure.
consulate. So you really have to make sure that you provide those documents. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back in
Yeah.
and speak to them and wait and have they say, rendezvous or a meeting.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's a certain amount of income that you have to show that you have coming in each month.
Yeah.
That's typical for a lot of the countries. Okay. All right. Well, great. So, and you're on what kind of a visa now?
Me, I'm on the entrepreneur visa.
Entrepreneur one. Okay. All right.
I started with a student one, then applied to my salary one because I was working for CNN International, in fact, in Paris.
Hmm.
And then created my business and changed to my current visa.
Hmm. You were working for who? International?
CNN International,
You were working for CNN.
right?
What were you doing for them?
I was more in the like account management and sales.
Yeah.
So what I did was kind of help, it was more like the MEA area that I was working with. So I would, work with companies who want to put their, advertisements digitally or on television, and kind of worked with the production agency at CNN in London to
Hmm.
kind of, you know, put that out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun experience. I would go from Paris to London like decently often because the main headquarters was in London. So
Oh, very nice. That's pretty cool. All right. So what's cool about Paris today? What makes it like this extraordinary place that everybody wants to go to? Everybody has a picture somewhere in their home of the Eiffel Tower or of Paris, you know? I mean,
yeah,
it's one of those magical places, but tell me, what is it about Paris that really attracts people? Why do people want to go to France?
I don't know. I think just the culture and the food, the gastronomy. Like when people think of France, they think of I don't know, just they say love, the city of love, but honestly, it's technically called the city of lights. Not even called the city of love; it's called the city of lights. But I don't know. There's this type of romanticism in France there that make people want to go, and obviously it's also a hub for fashion as well. So I was also working um, in the fashion industry at one point, doing like production with fashion brands as well. And it's really interesting. I mean, it's so dynamic. There's like you have people, families living just outside of Paris or in Paris. You have, students, diversity. The food is great. I think that's the reason why people want to go. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of like I think it's the Japanese disease or something like that. But
Mm-mm.
honestly, I just know that like in Japan they glorify Paris and they get here and they're like, oh, I want to stay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really, you have to be in France to really kind of understand what I'm saying.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, France is it's great. Like there's just so much to do. The music, the art, the cultural, the history, the
Yeah.
buildings in general. You're literally walking through just like a museum in
Yeah.
Paris.
That, that's what I felt like when I was in Paris. It's just like everywhere you walk, it's just stunningly beautiful. It does feel like you're in a museum. Every direction you're looking at an architectural gem.
Yeah.
And it's just a really special place. Yeah, and it's an extraordinary place to live. It's very cool. Have you been to New York City?
I have. Yeah,
In
my friends live in New York, so I
in
go.
London? How do you compare Paris? Like these are like the the big ones. Like you got London, you got New York City, you got Paris. What how do you compare Paris to those two
I
or
would
three?
say Paris is more laissez-faire in
Okay.
terms of, lifestyle.
Yeah.
Um, New York is super fast paced. London is also pretty fast paced. And Paris, you take your time, in fact. So if you
Mm.
go for lunch, for example, with friends or during work, you just take your time. It's a little more laid back, I would say. And I kind of really preferred that other than the busyness of living in the US.
Yeah.
Even in Boston, when I was working in Boston, it was consistently just work, 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 but
Yes.
here there's a life work balance and it's really nice, in fact.
Well, it sounds like the Parisians know how to breathe a little bit
Yeah.
and take it in, you know? Because really, I mean, living in New York, I know a lot of people that live in New York City that have never been to some, like on top of the Empire State Building, or they've never been to Ellis Island. They don't even because it's there all the time, and they're moving so fast that you just don't have time to really take these amazing things that are around you in.
Yeah, I mean, there's people here in Paris too that take things for granted. For
Sure.
example, I know some French people who literally they obviously have seen the Eiffel Tower they pass by, but they have never actually been on the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
you know, so I think it's like that for everyone who lived in the city. Same.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So, as far as like neighborhoods and places that are affordable, because we talk about this podcast really tries to hone in on areas where people can score a great flat that's
Mhm.
affordable, or like even digital nomads that tune into this and they're like going, I'd love to go work for 3 months to 6 months in Paris. I'd just love to experience that, but I have this much income coming in, so I have to do this on a budget.
Right.
So what are flats going for? What are like some of the really good deals you can get a flat for in and around Paris?
Well, let's say it depends on what you want. Like, if you want to be in the center of Paris, you definitely can at like with a budget of 600 to 700 euro, for example, which is on
Oh,
the cheaper end. Or,
yeah, yeah,
because Paris is a very expensive city, especially real estate wise.
yes.
So to get a studio, like a decent studio for around 25 mètres carrés, it's or like minimum 700 euro, I would say.
Okay.
But if you want like a bigger space and be in the center of Paris, you can also do what we say colocation, so a roommate situation. And if you're open to it, of course. I think as a digital nomad, I think it's more interesting to kind of
Sure.
live with people who are local, so that you can kind of immerse yourself in the culture already with people who have been living there, with French people.
Sure.
Um, that's my recommendation to digital nomads, in fact, is to do a roommate situation if you're only going to be there for 3 to 6 months. And I only say this because I have spoken to many, international people moving to Paris, and it's hard finding friends,
Yeah.
particularly because of the language barrier, I would
Sure.
say. And
Sure.
the French culture in general is a little more reserved, is not as open to communication with strangers as we are as Americans.
Mhm.
We don't just like start up a conversation in France with like someone sitting next to us at a cafe. Obviously, people do that. There are people who do that, but it's harder.
Yeah.
But I do recommend that as a digital nomad. And places that are affordable if you want to live by yourself would probably be more on the outskirts of Paris.
Okay.
Um, you know, in the south of Paris is really great. You have like Clamart, Montrouge, Malakoff, for example.
Hmm.
You have Boulogne-Billancourt also, which is just outside of Paris. It's a little more expensive, but the space is more modern, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Saint-Cloud is also really great as well.
Can you do me a favor and like just type those in chat, the name of the cities, like type the names
Sure. Like right
that,
now.
yeah, you could do it. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the names when you're stating
Ah,
when I
okay.
put it in the editing so people know what cities to look up.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah, that'd
Um,
be,
let's see. Where's the chat? Okay. So like,
and I'll gather that data and add it to this podcast.
sure.
Now does easy start when people are coming to Paris? Do they approach you saying, look, I'm looking for a flat in this particular budget, or I am a digital nomad? Are you a go-to person for that information?
Yes.
You
So
are.
we guide them in every aspect of the relocation. And that includes, you know, giving us their budget and working with that and also criteria. But the thing is, we have to also be a little strict with some of our clients who have this mentality that they can get a certain apartment in Paris based on their specific budget.
Yeah.
They need to be a little more realistic sometimes, you know,
Okay.
because Paris is a very old city. The buildings are not reconstructed really. Everything is small in terms of housing.
Sure.
So they have to be open to the fact that what they're paying for is probably going to be smaller than what they thought it would be. And if they
Gotcha.
want more space, like space is a luxury in Paris, really, in France in general, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Space is a luxury. And they just need to kind of be open to it. And there are pros and cons to Paris, you know, like if you really want to live in France or in Paris in general, then you have to be open to the fact that there's minimal space because you're in Europe. It's it's an ancient, you know, very historical place with not newer buildings.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. So we're looking at anywhere, would you say, starting out at about, you said 700 for a studio, or did you say 600?
Well, you can start with 600. It's
Okay.
harder to find. I would say 700 is a more realistic
Okay.
budget, starting at 700. And then from 700 to, I would say, like 1,000 euro or 1,100 euro, that would be the studio pricing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um, if you want a really nice studio, it would be a little bit more expensive. But if you want a one bedroom, which is harder to find,
Hmm.
um, it would start from 1,200 euro, I
Okay.
would say.
1,200. Now, do they sell flats? Do they have condos in Paris that they're selling? And do you have any idea what the
Well,
cost is of
yeah,
those?
I mean, the real estate market is really great here. They're very helpful in the real estate agents, but it to own a condo in Paris is hard to find, I would say. There's big apartments for sure. You can find a two-bedroom apartment, but a condo is going to be pretty pricey, I would say, if
Yeah.
you're renting. Hope maybe you can find a really great condo in the center of Paris, but it'll probably be at least like 1 million
Gotcha.
uh,
Okay.
euro.
Yeah. So you're looking at some pretty extreme pricing in the center. If you go out and a little bit further out, does it
Mhm.
become a little bit more realistic like most cities, or?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
becomes a little more realistic, I would say. And I also like recommend going to Versailles as well, because Versailles you have more space there. The rent is cheaper, and it's very close to Paris. You just take a train. It's like a 30-minute ride to Paris, and you have also, you know, the Chateau of Versailles there, the same type of, you know, ambiance in some way than Paris, but
Yeah.
obviously it's not Paris. So
Yeah. What part of Paris do you live in?
the third,
The the where?
the troisième.
Oh, okay.
So it's like La Marais area.
Yeah. Is it nice? I mean, is it within walking distance to a lot of, you have access to a lot of
Oh, it's like very center.
Is
So if
it?
you look
Okay.
on a map of Paris, it's very centralized. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, great. So now let's talk about healthcare. Everybody that comes to or moves to a different country is always concerned about healthcare and
Yes.
the costs and um, you know, how is healthcare there? Is it adequate, or do people go overseas to when they have something serious happen? So what's your take on that?
Well, luckily for me, I've never really had to go to the hospital for anything serious, but I would say the healthcare system here is really great. And compared to the US, for example, where it's very expensive, I haven't had to pay anything in terms of my medical bills here. Um, it's the universal healthcare system. So basically, what you do is you set up yourself for the social security. And what they say social security here is actually the healthcare system.
Okay.
So you would go to the doctor, for example, and you have this thing called the carte vitale, where you just give it to them and it has your social security number and everything on it. And the cost of your visit to the doctor is actually reimbursed by the government. So
Okay.
depending, if you're getting a very big um, surgery, then maybe your mutual, it's kind of like additional insurance, is will cover it. But really, it's nothing. It's
Hmm.
really nothing. It's very affordable healthcare here, and that's something that I really appreciate living in France is the healthcare system.
Wow.
Compared to in the US, I'm not saying it's terrible. There's many great doctors in the US, but
Yeah.
the fact that they're not, leaving us aside and because we don't have money to go to the doctor,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I think the US is in trouble. I do. I just do. I just think there's still, that's the number one reason why people file bankruptcy is something
Yeah.
happens. And even people that have insurance, they have insurance, but it doesn't fully cover the cost of something, that was like maybe a catastrophic incident that occurred within their family. Somebody had a heart attack, a stroke, were in for an exorbitant amount of time, and all of a sudden you got this incredible bill that your insurance only covers a percentage of. So then you got to, so it's really, yeah, there's a lot of work to be done in the US in regards to healthcare. So that's good to hear. That's
Especially
actually,
the pharmaceutical companies, it's a tough situation in the US over there because it is a business. And while in France, even your medical like prescriptions, for example, are covered. You get reimbursed for those as well. So just
yeah,
medication, which is important to live, for
yeah,
especially people who are older. It's really great. And people are like not afraid to call the ambulance either.
yeah,
If
yeah.
something goes really wrong, then you can call the ambulance. Even a doctor will come to your house if you're sick just to check up on you. And
Hmm.
it's free because it's
Wow,
the healthcare system.
that's terrific.
Yeah.
That is terrific. So transportation, how do you get around?
The train or metro, well, in Paris, the metro is a great means of transportation. We use Uber as well. I don't know if in the US you guys have Uber, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's been a long time I haven't been back because of COVID. But yeah, so metro system is really great. The cost of just one ticket is €1.90, which seems high, but in reality, it's actually much better than other cities that I've been to, like in
Sure.
Barcelona.
Hmm.
Um, and honestly, Paris is a very walkable city as well. If you like to ride a bike, you can actually rent a bike for €2. It's called the Valib. It's a city bike, and you can rent it for the entire day for €2, for example, and just kind of cruise through Paris. Um, and then obviously there's the bus, and it's the same cost as the metro. So
Okay. All right. Awesome. And they have, do they have just regular taxis there too? Do they compete with Uber? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I think now a lot of taxis are also Uber drivers as well. There's a
Yeah.
lot of apps like, transportation apps like Uber or Bolt as well. There's
Hmm. Do they have Lyft?
they have, yeah, there's Lyft as
Lyft.
well.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
All right, good. So, and how do you primarily get along around? Do you have a bike, and do you walk mostly, or
I love biking in
do you?
Paris. Yeah, and actually, right now Paris is becoming more of a bike city.
Nice.
So a lot of the roads are being closed off to cars because of the mayor of Paris who decided this. And I think it's really great. You know, it gets people moving their bodies. You know, going outside and in general, just very good for the climate. I
Sure,
would
sure.
say Paris is becoming a very like green city. I would say people who have a car are not really happy about it, but at the same time, it's just good for the environment in general. So I would
Hmm.
prefer, you know, riding my bike than taking the metro, for example, because the metro can also be kind of stressful, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
Especially if you don't know where you're going, it's your first time there, you don't know the subway system. Um, but also like depending on the time of day that you're in the metro and which metro that you're on, you can kind of be packed like sardines and there's no air conditioning as well.
sure.
So if you're claustrophobic, I don't particularly recommend the metro. Take the bike or walk around.
Yeah, yeah. So for people that have to get on the train daily to commute to work, what do you
Mhm.
think like a monthly cost, a realistic monthly cost for an individual
Um,
for transportation in Paris?
okay, well, if the person is working, you know, going to work every day back and forth, the most logical thing that they usually do is buy the Metro Pass. It's called the Navigo.
Okay.
So that's around 75 euro per month.
Okay. It's called the Navigo.
Wait, Navigo Pass.
Navigo. Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. So we got the real estate, healthcare, entertainment. What do
Yes.
you do nowadays in Paris for entertainment? It's a great place, but I know COVID is hit and it's kind of been detrimental to entertainment. Things are slowly opening up with. So what do people do for entertainment in Paris?
Honestly, well, obviously there's clubs and stuff like that if you're younger and whatnot. There's always a restaurant and bars that are like open until 6 in the morning, essentially.
Yeah.
To kind of talk to your friends and have a drink on the terrace. But then there's, you know, you have the Seine as well, like the river that runs through Paris, where people just kind of sit there during the spring and summer and just sit and talk with their friends and hang out. That's the most affordable way
Mhm.
of, you know, entertainment, I would say,
Yeah.
uh, is to just be with your friends next to the water or like be in the park, etc. Yeah, I mean, Paris is such a like diverse entertainment wise
Yeah.
as well. I mean, there's a lot of cafes, bars, things to see. Even, you know, sometimes you can just go to Montmartre, for example, and just hang out and see the view of Paris. It's like the highest point in Paris.
Hmm.
Just sit there, listen to some jazz music because it's the artistic area. Um, just check out some paintings in that area as well. There's really just like so much to do and at a low cost, affordable.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And as far as like museums and things of that nature, are there any museums or places that you can access for free?
For free, if you're a student, you can access the Louvre for free.
Okay.
That's really great. I think that's also important as well.
Anybody
Um,
with a student visa can go there for free?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Student a student visa, and I think you have to be 26 and under when it's free.
Okay.
I think actually, I'm sorry, I have to fact check myself on this because I'm definitely not 26 anymore. Older than that. It's been a while. I believe that if you're under 26, you actually are able to go into any museum for free.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fantastic.
I have to fact check that again. I'm not sure if it's exactly the case, but
Yeah.
if I do remember it was like that when I
Okay.
moved to
Yeah, if it
Paris.
isn't, let me know and we'll just put that in a little blip. Um,
Okay. Sounds good.
all right. So and so then entertainment, transportation, real estate, flats. We covered the visa. Um, that is pretty much the things, you know, like for me, what's your take? And everybody always asks me this too, like cover safety,
So
and I don't talk a lot about that, especially places like Paris, because I think they're very similar to like New York City and London, where, I mean, with every big city, there's always crime and there's
sure.
things that,
Um,
yeah, but
the
what's your take?
only, I would say the only thing that I would, recommend and advise people is just to keep their belongings very close to them. Like Paris is not an aggressive city. Um, it's not that dangerous. Like I have definitely walked in at night in Paris and felt comfortable walking alone in Paris. But the only thing is there's a lot of pickpocketing. So just make sure that you always have things, yeah, your purse is in front of you, for example, or if you're a male, make sure it's in your front pocket or in a pocket inside your coat or something like that. But
Mm,
apart from that, Paris is a fairly safe city, I would say. I've
yeah,
never felt like aggression there.
yeah,
Obviously, there are stories of people who get aggressed um, by people, especially people. Especially there's these women in front of the Eiffel Tower, for example, they can get aggressive a little bit, but not to the point where they're going to hurt you. They're just verbally aggressive. Aggressive, I would say.
mhm,
All you have
yeah,
to do is walk away.
sure, yeah, okay. Now, is the Jim Morrison grave still a hot spot in Paris?
People still go there.
They
I'll
do.
be honest, I've never been there,
Yeah.
but people do go there. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a really nice cemetery. It's really great.
Yeah.
A lot of history there.
Yeah. I visited that when I was there, and it was really intriguing because there were a lot of people lighting candles around his grave and
Mhm.
crying. And they were young.
Oh,
Yeah, and there were some young people that were there that weren't even alive. They weren't even born yet. They were just young, and I'm like going, wow, they're some huge Doors fans here.
yeah. Well,
Clearly,
actually, there's a lot of Door fans in France. Like my
yeah.
boyfriend, for example, is a huge Door fan.
I
So,
would imagine. I would imagine, yeah. And especially,
and
yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of places that you can go in Paris just to walk around for free. Even if you're into art, for example, a lot of the galleries are free. You could just walk in and see art that way.
Hmm.
Especially in the center of Paris, Le Marais, where I'm located.
Yeah,
It's the epitome of galleries, essentially. So.
sure, sure. Okay. Well, and that's pretty much all I have. Is there anything else that you can think of that um viewers would be interested in knowing about living in France or living in Paris, traveling there, that they need to know or that we
I would say that Paris is a very particular city compared to the rest of France. Like you have France and then you have Paris, and they're very two different, you know, I would say if they were people, they would be different.
sure.
If you go outside of Paris, the lifestyle is different. Like if you go to Nantes, for example, it's near the water. People are very relaxed, more, more laissez-faire than the Parisian people because it is such a big city here.
Hmm.
If you go to the south, for example, it's more different than it is in Paris. But
Hmm.
I would say that, like in general, France is such an amazing country to live in, and there's so much to see, and you can get anywhere really easily.
Hmm.
Um, by train in a few hours, for example, you're in the south of France. You go to Marseille and in 2 hours, 3 hours max. So, I mean, there's just so much opportunity to see the country and to experience the culture. And being in Paris, for example, is obviously the hub of France,
Hmm.
but I also recommend people to live in a different city like Bordeaux. Bordeaux is like a smaller city, but it's kind of like Paris as well. And you are surrounded by even, like better wine than in Paris.
Hmm.
You
Sure.
go to
Yeah.
France for wine. So um, yeah, it's very very different country, and it's really beautiful. So I would say, like, don't just think of Paris. Don't think of France as just Paris, because there are obviously very beautiful cities outside of Paris as well that I would recommend living in it also,
Hmm.
which is cheaper in fact than Paris because Paris is very expensive.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to end. What are some of like these other cities that are more affordable, that are really desirable, that people have maybe caught on to, or some people that have moved to France are living in these communities and they're going, wow, I'm glad we found this place because this is spectacular. And a lot of people don't. Are are there any of those cities that you can think of that are, what are they?
Yeah, so well, obviously Paris is great for every type of person coming to France, but then you have Bordeaux, which is a very like student-oriented city as well, and it's becoming more popular of people actually moving outside of Paris. Since Paris is becoming very expensive, people are moving to like Bordeaux.
Hmm.
Lyon is a really great city as well. Actually, here's a fun fact: Lyon is actually the center point of gastronomy, not Paris.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, of French food, you go to Lyon.
Oh wow, that's a great fact. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I mean, there's Nice as well if you want to be next to the Mediterranean Sea. If you go
Nice
to
is expensive though,
Marseille,
isn't it? Isn't Nice expensive?
no, Nice is actually affordable. It's
Is
less
it?
expensive than, yeah, less
Okay.
expensive than Paris. I would say Bordeaux is more expensive than Nice in terms of housing
Hmm.
situation from what I've seen
Yeah.
in terms of being a relocation agent. And then Marseille is also very affordable as well. It's
Mhm.
more of a busier city, but you have the Quelonque next door, which is amazing. I love the Quelonque in the
Hmm.
south of France. Um, yeah, so I would say, you know, Bordeaux, Nice, Marseille. If you want to be more on the east side, Lyon was really great, and Strasbourg is also very beautiful, and it's very close to, you know, Germany. And Nantes is near the Atlantic. If you want to be close to, for example, like to London, for example, if you, it's very close. It's at the English Channel there. So
Hmm.
I would say just go to those cities.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And Anne Déla Victoria, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast and
For
sharing your
having me. I really appreciate it.
wisdom and all this information. It's been terrific and awesome. And I could tell you do this on a regular basis. Everybody needs to go to easystart.me.
Yeah.
If you are considering spending some time in France or moving to France, she is the person to go to, and she can guide you through the process and find you living arrangements, visa, whatever you need. She can work through it for you. That's correct, right?
That's correct. And you know what's great about Easy Start is that actually our team is very international as well. So we have been there in your position before, whereas a lot of relocation agencies in France, which there's actually not many of us or many agencies in France, but they're owned by French people who don't actually know or haven't experienced it themselves.
Sure.
That's kind of like differentiates us as a relocation agency. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks again. Merci beaucoup.
Oui, je vous en prie.
Bye.